Hello YouTube. Today we're going to be discussing abs. Now if you think about it for a second, abs might be the most desired muscle groups out of the entire human body across the board in every single male. And a quick look at YouTube fitness or just life in general is going to convince you of that. And that's already interesting because at the end of the day, it's just a muscle group. We have tons of them. So why do we have that obsession with abs and not with calves? That's something I want to discuss with you because if we're going to level up our abs, I believe it's also important to understand why we even try in the first place. I've noticed an interesting dichotomy, at least on YouTube fitness, between people who are obsessed with abs and who want them at all cost and those that hate it. If you look at these people's physiques, you will find that one group tends to over diet to develop abs, which in reality just means that they're so skinny that you can see their abdominal walls, and the other ones are the exact opposite, where they have decided that developing a six-pack is the most vain thing you can do as a man, and they even deem it feminine, and so they avoid it at all costs, which is also a nice justification to have a gut year-round and to be fat. Both of these groups, in my opinion, are symptoms of the same disease, and that disease is the six-pack obsession. Because whether you want one or you hate people who have one, it's the same thing. It comes from the same idea, and the idea is the core, the abs. We are all focused around that, and if you look at the etymology, the core, right? It makes total sense. It's at the core and center of the body, so it's at the core and center of the fitness discussion. Because if you were to ask 100 young men what muscles they want to grow, I guarantee you that 90% would say abs. And that is then, shared with maybe 6 or 7% that say chest and like 3% that say arms. And then a few deviants that like big legs, like myself. But there is still a majority, a crushing majority for abs. And that's in every culture, by the way, it's across the globe. And for me, when I try to trace it back and understand why, I have to go back a few, maybe even 10 years to find the reason why I myself, like many, was also obsessed with abs. And the reason to me is to be found in the media. Because my idea of a muscular physique was influenced by the movies I watched and consumed. And in all of these movies, there was always the same thing going on. The hero, the masculine type, the alpha male, they all had the same attributes. And that physical trait was that they had a six-pack. Always. You cannot find me a movie with, again, a warrior or superhero where they don't have abs. Think back to something like 300, 300, as we say in French. Look at their abdominal muscles. They're insane. So insane, by the way, that a lot of that was from makeup because they would actually apply makeup in between the abs to make them look deeper. Why? Why would a movie director tell his accessorists to actually heighten the abdominal walls and muscles of his actors? How does it make any sense? Well, it makes sense because a six-pack has become a cultural item in a sense. It's a pop culture phenomenon, and it's in every movie. And the worst part, the worst or the best, depending on where you look at it, is that for a lot of people, a six-pack abs has become the trademark for a muscular body, meaning that they don't look at the entire body at all. They just look at one thing, and that one thing is the six-pack. If they see a six-pack, that's it, you made it, you're muscular. Think back again to someone like Brad Pitt from Fight Club. He was like this. He had almost no muscle mass to speak of, but he had a well-defined core, and so he was deemed muscular. And in all Hollywood action hero movies, it's the same trick. They develop their six-pack, and that's it, they made it, they're muscular. And the thing is that many young boys, as I say, grow up watching these movies, and so they, of course, associate their personality with their favorite star and they want to look like them. And so they obsess over their abs. And it doesn't really lead to what you would think it does because that could be a good thing, right? A male power fantasy is sometimes a positive influence in the life of a young boy, but not always. And the truth is in the pudding, in my opinion. When you look at most people's core, on YouTube Fitness, for example, you will find, as I say, two types. One, the skinny DL dweeb that has over-dieted to have abs and now has nothing to show for, or the type that is just fed up with abs and the diets and they say it's impossible to maintain and they say, fuck it, I'm going to get as big as possible, screw abs. The problem is that there is an in-between, and that in-between is almost nowhere to be found. And for us to be able to reach that in-between, we have to level up our abs. And so this video serves that very purpose. When it comes to abs, most people from the two groups I just spoke about go about it the wrong way, meaning that they prioritize it with everything they have. And you might tell me, well, NH, I want abs, so of course I need to work them more often. Wrong. Because when it comes to that muscle group in particular, what you're doing is you're going to burn out, or you're going to put all of your eggs in that one basket, you're going to get abs, and then you're going to realize that the reason why you wanted abs was to get muscular and you failed entirely. So the reason why I opened with that discussion about the dangerously, quote unquote, of the six-pack obsession is because you are being led down a path that is not going to make you happy. It's not going to get you what you want. And so you're going to really waste your time trying to get abs, which you will not even be able to do. And even if you did, you wouldn't be fine or happy about it because the physical and visual result would not be appealing to you. And that is a shame because in reality, a six-pack ab is actually really easy to get. But if you go about it the wrong way, you'll never get it. It's, how can I put that into words? It's an interesting thing. The abdominal muscles are special. They're not like the rest of the body, which by the way is the reason why they got that status. It's both a cultural and a biological thing. And the biological thing, I believe, comes from the fact that, again, if you ask men which muscle they want to develop, they'll say abs. And if you ask women what muscles they like the most, they'll also say abs. And there's a correlation here. Because, of course, as males, we gravitate towards what is the most attractive for the other gender, whether we like to believe it or not. Many people say that they train for themselves and that's great, but if you're an heterosexual or even homosexual male, in the back of your head, there's always the thought, I'm doing this and that makes me more attractive to the other gender, so that's a plus. Some guys do it only for that reason, but I don't really believe that there are many people who do it for the pure sole purpose of developing their body and their spirituality. There's always that underlying benefit of being more attractive. And sadly, a six-pack does make you more attractive. It's like the neck thing. If you show women, guys with pencil necks or with thick necks, they always go for the guy with the thicker neck, for the most part, because it makes you look more masculine and dominant. For the six-pack, it's the same. You show 100 women the physique of a man and you Photoshop abs on or off, you're going to see that many are going to go for the six-pack. You'll have a few that will prefer a chubby guy, but across the board, it is a marker of sexual value in a sense on the sexual market. And there are many reasons for that. It's actually quite interesting. You can discuss the fact that it's a sign of anabolism because it means that you have more lean mass because you don't have much actual fat content around your waist. Some people would go as far as to say that it also increases the power of your hip thrusts. So some women would associate that from a visual perspective to a potential, ability that you have to mate. That's questionable. I don't know about that. All that I know is that it does make you look more masculine to develop your core, and women gravitate towards that. So that is a plus. That is also the reason why a lot of guys want abs. And you need to be true to yourself because if you want to level them up, you're going to have to realize why exactly you want them so that you avoid the pitfalls that I described. Because the problem, as I said, is that since you base your pursuit of abs on a portion, your training is going to be based off of the same portions. And usually when you follow your portions, you're not super smart. You need to have the mix of animalistic tendencies and desires and human ability to actually interact with these portions and organize a plan to fulfill them in an intelligent fashion. So, for me, that's my opinion. I understand that some people will not agree with that. A six-pack, or at least a well-developed core, is the most important thing you can have in terms of aesthetics for a very simple reason. it is something that links the upper and the lower body together. Because technically, if you think about it, we love as bodybuilders to split our trainings between upper and lower, but where do the abs fall into that equation exactly? Well, nowhere. Why? Because they're not upper body, but they're not lower body either. They're the connection between the two. And it's, in a sense, a sort of bridge. And it's not just a bridge in terms of performance, because a lot of athletes will tell you that you need to develop your core, because the kinetic energy comes from the floor and is transferred into the upper body. For baseball, for example, when you swing the bat, yeah, you better have a developed core to be able to actually gather and transfer that energy. But for us, for bodybuilders, in terms of aesthetic, it's also key because that's where the eyes go. When people look at you, they look at your center mass, and your center mass is your core. If you have a shitty core, that's the first thing they see. And the problem is that a poorly developed core is something that is going to ruin the rest of the physique. I believe that there are peripheral muscles that don't really matter that much in terms of package, like the long head of the triceps. No one will tell you, oh, you look worse because you have a small head of the tricep. That doesn't happen. But you always recurrently hear people say, oh, his physique is amazing, but it's ruined because his midsection is bad. Like pro bodybuilding is infested with that, with guys who are just huge, they have big pregnant bellies off of the GH and the insulin, and that makes them look terrible. They look like Ninja Turtles. And the problem is that the rest of the body looks good. I mean, it's massive and freaky if you like that style, but that big bubble gut in the middle makes everything go to waste. It's the same for natty guys. The good thing with natty guys is that we don't have to worry about that bubble gut. We only have to worry about the muscular development and the amount of fat that we carry here on our abs. And so for me, if you bodybuild, you better train your core, because if you want a good looking body, you're going to have to develop it. Now, not only does it tie everything together, I also find that it's a good indicator of health in general, but also of progression in terms of lean mass. Health, because there's a saying from where I come from that 1 centimeter on your waist is 1 year of life that you're not going to get to live. That's not, of course, medically accurate, but it's true that the most visceral fat you have around your waist, the less of a chance you have to live a long, happy life, because that's a burden on the body. And whether it's subcutaneous or actually within the organs does play a difference, but at the end of the day, having a big donut around your waist is not the best for longevity across the board. And it's the reason why also when you go to the doctor, they look at your BMI and then they look at your waistline. And the more your waistline increases, the worse off you are. The problem with many men is that the more they age, the more their waistline increases and they think, oh, that's fine, until they're like this and they can barely actually see their dick. Now that's a big problem because to lose all of that, good luck. The body likes to accumulate all of that storage. It's tough to lose. So keep an eye on that. I was the number one victim of that mindset of trying to get big and big and big, to the point where I got to a level where my love handles were just, I don't even have a verb to describe that. They were trying to extirpate themselves from my shorts and my jeans. They were massive. Like you could come from behind if you had enough strength, grab me and just carry me around like a newborn baby, because there were actually just, portable options on the side of my body. Interesting. I'm sure that if I actually were thrown into the ocean back then, I would float, because I had that massive buoy around my waist. It doesn't look good. Looking back at my pictures, I'm like, how did I let it get to that point? It's an embarrassment. Well, it's because I had failed to level up my abs. But not only is it a good indicator of health across the board, I also believe that, again, if you pay attention to your waist, you will find that you're going to track lean mass gains without the need of any scientific procedure. I explain. If you are gaining weight and you're getting bigger, but your waist is increasing, you're not really getting bigger, you're getting fatter. It's not the same thing. A lot of bodybuilders who follow powerlifting principles fall into that trap. They see the weight going up on the scale, they see the weight going up in the weight room, and they think, oh, I'm getting muscle. Maybe you are, but not as much as you think you are. And the actual one indicator of that is your waistline. You are getting fatter because your waistline is increasing, and it's not increasing because of muscle, it's increasing because of fat. And that fat is additional weight that allows you to push more weight. So, as a bodybuilder, look at your waist, it's increasing, you're doing something wrong. Unless your goal is to actually increase your waist, and that is your problem. But, and I want to insist on that, a developed core or a six-pack is not a good indicator of athleticism. I know that, again, pop culture has put into your head that to be an athlete, you need a six-pack. To be fast, you need a six-pack. That the best boxers have a six-pack. All of that is nonsense. A six-pack is a visual attribute. It has nothing to do with function. So, if you are the type of person who puts function over form, yeah, don't worry about that. This video is not really for you, because I'm talking about leveling up the abs, not the function of the abs. Also that, although you'll see that the two go hand in hand, sort of. But I just want to put that out there because I just talked about a big waist and being fat, etc. I want people to realize one thing. I'm talking for bodybuilders. For anyone else, doesn't matter. Okay, you can be a fat and win a gold medal in the Olympics. They're not going to measure your waistline. All right. Actually, maybe having that extra fat helps you because it cushions and it creates a sort of wrap around your organs and your muscles. Because yes, people with a gut have muscles. Did you know that? Underneath all that fat, there is abdominal muscles. Look at strongmen. Some of them are so big that the fat doesn't even stop the muscle from bulging through. You can still see their abs. But even those where you can't, like Eddie Hall when he had his big belly, yeah, he still has abs underneath that. And not only does he has abs, they are incredibly strong because they're being helped by the fat. But for a bodybuilder, that's not the question, so I'm not going to insist too much on that. And this goes for everyone, by the way. I know that some people like to tell themselves, bodybuilders, that they are the exception that doesn't need to train their abs. Well, if you have a well-developed core, by default, you're good. Your abs are already leveled up. But for the rest, there is not a single category of people that shouldn't be training their abs. And that goes for all of my fellow wide-waisted lifters. I know that you've been told that you have a wide waist and you should not develop the core because it will make you look worse, that your obliques are going to get worse. All of that was a lie. You have a wide waist, that's it, you're fucked. You're like me, I have a 36 inches waist. It's there to stay, okay? It's there, unless you're massively fat. If what you touch here is a bone, yeah, that's a bone, buddy. It's not going anywhere, so don't think that it's going to shrink if you don't train your abs. In reality, you'll look worse. And the proof that I have for that is, go back to my pictures when I was younger, look at my abs then, look at them now. My waist looked terrible back then because I had no development. And now I have development and it looks much better. It's one of my best body parts because I trained it regularly all the time. So don't let people talk you out of training your core. You need to develop your core. Your shitty looking waist can look tremendously better if you actually put in the time. And for your obliques, it goes the same way. Now, for the obliques, I must say that I'm personally not the type of person who trains them directly because I don't see the point. And this is where minimalism and maximalism meet. Because to train your abs, you need both, but you need to make smart, educated choices. For example, again, the obliques. When I see people isolate their obliques, I always see the same exercise. The one where they stand with a dumbbell, usually it's a plate in their hand, and they do this when they just do to the side. And they think that grows their obliques. That grows nothing. It grows your scoliosis, yes, but besides that, look at the gravity curve. Look at the way the weight is being pulled. You're not training your obliques there. Your obliques are not resisting the weight or anything. They might be slightly involved. You're mostly using your spine and your upper back and your hips to move that weight. That is a terrible exercise for the obliques across the board. You want good stuff for the obliques, do Russian twists, do side leg raises hanging from the bar or for a bench. That's much better. It stretches the obliques and they have to support your glutes and the rest of the body. Don't do that standing stuff. It's a complete waste of time, okay? It's not dangerous per se, but it is not really effective at all. And I also must say that, as I said, minimalism also has a role to play in leveling up your abs because I have found personally that compound movements like the squats and the deads grow your obliques. And that's something that pro bodybuilders know because they constantly tell people to not do rows or squats or deads because it grows the obliques, it grows the waist. Nonsense. It makes the obliques bigger, leaner because they become more muscular, but it doesn't grow the waist because guess what? Your obliques don't insert on the side of the waist. I know that a lot of people have that misconception in their heads. If you have something here, that's not your obliques, that's love handles, that's fat. There's no muscle where I'm touching here. This is the oblique here, right there. Okay, this is where it inserts. It's in the front of the body. It's like if someone told you if you grow your glutes, you'll have a wider waist. No, the glute is underneath. It pushes from behind. It won't widen the waist. It's the same for the obliques. It's from the front. It gives a nicer visual aspect from the front, but from the side, in terms of width, it doesn't do what you think it does. So you're good on that. Don't worry about it. Now, if we're going to continue discussion on the type of people that should actually be training their waist, I also want to talk about people who have bad abs genetics. But before that, I want to check the time. Excellent. So, I know a lot of people, a lot of bros, who tell me that they have bad genetics for the abs, bad insertions, and therefore there's no point in working them. They might have what I call the ziplock abs, where you have one here and then one slightly lower, so you don't have the line in between that is nicely connecting the abs. That is not a death sentence. You know why? Because regardless of if you train your abs or not, that's how they look. That's their disposition. So don't use that as an excuse to not train them. You will look better with or without the training. You will look better with the training, and without it's just going to be worse. So don't actually fall for that bullshit, and do train them. Also because regardless of the visual aspect, as I said, they serve a function. I mean, you have abs for a reason. Whether you believe in God or you believe in evolution, actually we're going to pick evolution, but God also works. If humans have abs, it's because it's purposeful, right? If a God, an almighty God has created us, he gave us that because it serves a goal, so that it helps us survive and do something. Unless you believe that God is just an artist and he was like, oh, a six-pack, like I'm going to put like 6 little cases here because it just looks good. Yeah, I don't believe that for a second. And then if you look at evolution, well, the traits that go and survive in the species are the ones that are actually susceptible to help the species progress across the time, survive and thrive. So if we still have abs to this day, it's because our ancestors needed it. And as I said, it's because the abs connect the upper and the lower body. They're the bridge, they're the core, they make the center of our being. And therefore, if they're developed, they serve the purpose of preserving both. And they also preserve, most importantly, the lower back. There's a reason why many people who will tell you that if you have lower back pain, it's because you might have a weak core. And the very idea of core also, by the way, includes the lower back. It's not just the abs. You have the abs here and the lower back here. And it is true and correct that if you develop both, you will never get injured again because you will have a strong brace. Look at where the abs are. Look at where the chest is also. 2 of the thickest portions of the human body, where are they placed? In front of the organs. One for protection, because the muscle is like an armor, so there's no mistaking that your pectoral muscles protect your heart and your lungs. And then you have to look at the abdominal muscles. What do they protect? They protect your entrails, everything inside, the ribs. They've been placed there for a reason. So developing them also serves that purpose of keeping you alive, of making you tougher to kill, more resistant, more resilient. And in the weight room, that translates into keeping you injury-free, but also boosting your recovery, because a lot of people who run the back on the deadlift have weak cores. Why? When they pull with their legs, they're trying to use their legs, but their back and core gives up under load, and therefore they're forced to use the lower back to finish the lift. That is the sign of low rigidity. And what is rigidity exactly? Muscular development or fat, because fat also serves that purpose of a brace. So we see that there is both an aesthetic and a functional attribute to leveling up your abs. It's absolutely necessary. One thing I must say, however, is that even though the disposition of the abs is genetic, doesn't mean that their size is. That is a massive misconception I hear all the time. People who say, oh, I have small abs and that's genetics, they will never grow. That's stupid. It's like people who tell you I have small calves. It's funny how that mindset of a muscle that just cannot grow only applies to certain muscle groups and not others. Like, what is the difference exactly between your abs or your calves and your biceps? Have you ever met a guy who told you, oh, this is my peak bicep size and it can never grow from there? No, never, ever. Even the most black-pilled lifter will not believe that nonsense. And yet you believe that for the abs. Well, it's the same thing. It's not true. You have small abs because they're not hypertrophied yet. It's perfectly normal. And as I said, this connects directly to the six-pack obsession and the poor practices that people have. They train their abs, they think it's the proper way because they've seen Zac Efron or Justin Bieber do it on a magazine somewhere on TikTok, and then they say, oh, well, it doesn't work for me, so it must be my genetics, I have bad ab genetics. No, you don't. You apply bad training principles, you get bad results, and then you wonder why you get nothing done. It's simple, it's because you're a bit of a stupid hub. And I don't know what that even means. I think I just invented a new word. It's not even in the English. Wow, what is going on here? I don't know. Okay, let's pretend that this never happened. All right, so as I said, there's no such thing as small abs, okay? If you have those tiny like bars that some guys have, or they slightly stick out and they don't recover the entirety of the core, yeah, that's nothing to do with genetics. It's because you haven't hypertrophied them yet. You need to stretch them more aggressively so that they actually grow and they cover the area that you want them to cover. And I'm going to share my methods with you because that's how we actually level up our abs. I think that repeating the word abs times and times again is slowly developing an aneurysm within my brain. I'm going to watch for that, but if I start going full gibberish, call 911, it'll be already too late because you're seeing this video after the fact, but at least they will find my body in the gym and I will not be devoured by the rats. So, it also is the area of the body, the abs, that shows the most definition the quickest because that's where you store your fat, and therefore a lot of people when they start cutting and they lose there in priority. And it also connects, as I said, to bodybuilding criteria, we don't need an S, because it's the area that receives the most focus. Like, oh, he has shredded abs, he has well-developed six-pack, we see the details. All of that is like magnified. They're looking at it through a loop. And the problem is that they don't really do that for other muscles. Like you rarely hear people obsess over bicep striations, even though they exist. And so that creates in people's head also an obsession, as I said. And the thing with definition and the six-pack is that you can obtain a well-defined core if you just diet, because you'll lose the fat and you'll see the muscles. Problem is, you're going to look back and be one of these guys with small abs because you went about it the wrong way, since you have started to believe that definition is what matters the most in terms of core development, and that is simply not true. Just like any muscle, number one is hypertrophy, number two is conditioning, and for the abs it's the same. I know that people have told you that abs are made in the kitchen. That's nonsense. Abs are built in the gym and they're revealed in the kitchen. It's not the same. But since so many people use it as a cutting gouge, it's not going to go away anytime soon. I know guys, when they cut, they look at their waist and only their waist and they think, okay, I'm only going to look at that area in particular because it's what is going to tell me when I should stop cutting or not. The problem is that this is not taking into consideration body fat distribution, which is different in every single individual. For some guys like myself, we don't really store any fat here, but we do store it somewhere else. I have a six-pack year-round. I also have fat glutes and fat legs year-round. It's the way my body stores. So for myself, if I were to cut and I use my six-pack, well, I already have one, so I'm done? Well, no. If I wanted to be more lean, I would have to look at other areas. You might be the type of person who has shredded glutes and like feathered quads, but a lot of fat and water here, and you cut and you cut and you cut, and you never see the abs, and you say, man, either I have no abs or I have to sacrifice mass until there's no tomorrow to see these fuckers. The problem is that, again, you're wrong. You're not going about it the right way. The problem is not that you have bad ab definition, it's that you don't have abs to start with. We're all born with a six-pack, but yours might be shy or stubborn. It needs to be developed more to actually bulge through. But if you continuously cut or just say screw it, you'll never see it because you have convinced yourself that you just have bad genetics. And that, as I said, is not correct. So be careful with that type of mindset. It will prevent you from developing the six packs of your dream, because even if you're born with something like a 4-pack, you can still have a 4-pack. You can have a 6, an 8, a 10-pack, doesn't matter. You have a predetermined number of abdominal muscles, and their shape, the way they are actually placed on the core, is predetermined, but their size isn't. So get that out of your head. The definition that you wish is accessible as long as you understand that. And this leads to a discussion about the special place that the abs occupy in YouTube fitness outside of culture, in terms of relevance when we're talking about performance or aesthetic. Because as I said, there are two camps that are fighting it out. There are the bodybuilders who just care about the form, and there is the camp of the powerlifters who only care about the function. Neither of this camp is right or wrong. They apply what works best for their sport, okay? The byproduct of that, however, is that the methods that surround the development of the core are all wrong. For the most part, no one knows how to train their core. It's because the knowledge has been bastardized. Everyone has thrown in their knowledge into the mix. Powerlifters say this, bodybuilders say that, calisthenic athlete has this to say, and now you end up with a gloopy bulga of apparently sound training advice that put together leads nowhere, because it's just a dissonance of opinions. And the problem with opinions is that everyone has one. So I'm trying to give you a fair assessment of what I believe functions. And what functions is, first off, to actually know what you're doing. Because a lot of people think they're working their abs, when in reality, they're working their core. And these are not the same thing. I know a lot of people like to conflate the two, because a lot of people also conflate size and strength, but function is not form. I know, again, revelation of the century, some of you still haven't fully understood what that means. Bodybuilding and powerlifting follow different goals. And those different goals also mean that we're going to go about it different ways. And in that regard, if you're a bodybuilder, you need to train your abs through function, because of course they're a muscle, not for it. What I mean by that is, and I will not spend too much time on that, I have another video plain on the topic and the matter, but if you develop your muscle, you will have to lift. How do you lift? With intensity. So you develop what? Strength. Okay, for what goal? To grow bigger, not to get stronger. Same for abs. Yes, you will train your abs for function, because the only way to actually hypertrophy them is to break muscle fiber down, and to do that, you need to tap in the function of the ab, because to work a muscle, you need to use its function. It should be obvious, okay? For a lot of people, it isn't. So just because you are going to follow certain principles that utilize function doesn't mean that we're training for function, we're training for form through function, okay? And it also means that, by the way, you can have a strong core without abs. I said that with strong men and powerlifters, they have massively strong cores, but they don't have six packs. Why? It's hidden underneath, okay? Likewise, you can have a six-pack and have a shitty core. It's not the same thing. The two don't go hand in hand, okay? Optimally, as a bodybuilder, you would want a little bit of both, with, of course, an accent put on the aesthetic, and some functionality that allows you, as I said, to stay injury-free as long as possible, and to allow you to lift proper. What you want to do then, or rather what you want to not do, is to either only do ab isolation and nothing else, or do only compounds, okay? Don't be a pure bodybuilder, don't be a pure powerlifter. In that case, even that is nonsense what I just said, because this is accepting the idea that compound lifts are not part of bodybuilding. Screw that, I'm going back, the NH of 5 seconds ago is an idiot. What I meant to say is, you don't want to train like an idiot bodybuilder, and you don't want to train like a powerlifter. You want to utilize the tools that are at our disposal to level up your abs. And these tools are very simple. It's going to be compound movements, and it's going to be isolation. And I will define exactly how to. But as you can tell, it's going to be fairly easy. Because as I said, growing a six-pack and having a nice core is not hard. It's not the difficult things that people what is even the verb? Purported to be? There's a verb in P that means what I want it to mean. Right now, I'm blanking. So, as I said, if we're going back, before we even talk about training, there's something else that sabotages you every single time you want to level up your abs, and that is the focus on diet. Focusing on diet to get abs is not the key. I already explained. If you just starve yourself to have a six-pack, well, nice, you'll see your abs, but they'll be tiny, so there's no point. People have told you that abs are made in the kitchen. That is simply not true, okay? You need to integrate that. Because the diet only reveals the work. It's like people who think that, and also no one thinks like this. It's like if you met someone who told you, I'm going to cut and my biceps are going to be massive. No, if you have no muscle here, you can cut as much as you want, your abs will only look skinny. And yet, the same people cannot apply that mindset to the abs. If you have shitty abs and you're fluffy, you lose the fluff, you still have shitty abs. Just now you can see them. What exactly is the point? Develop that muscle. Stop playing the game of cutting and bulking all the time to reveal that six-pack, which doesn't exist. You're trying to reveal something that you never actually developed. So no wonder you have shitty abs. It's not your genetics, again, it's your practices. Because perma-cutting is bad. It led us and gave us a generation of aesthetic bras that weighed 165 pounds with no muscles whatsoever, but they sort of see their abs, so it's okay. It's not okay. That's not leveling up your abs. You're leveling up your eating disorders, yes, but it's not a healthy way to lead your life. Plus, being constantly in that skeleton state to be able to see your abs is the reason why people think that a six-pack ab is not sustainable year-round. Because yes, if the only way for you to see them is to starve yourself to the point that you're miserable, that is not sustainable. But, genius idea, 200 IQ move, if you actually grow the muscle, then you don't have to diet like an idiot because the muscle doesn't go anywhere. For me, I have six-pack abs all year round. In winter, I have six-pack. In summer on the beach, I have my six-pack. It doesn't go away. It's not like detachable. If you're natural and you have a six-pack, yeah, you can shake your own hand. You're good for the rest of your life. You'll have your six-pack forever because it's piece easy to maintain. So put that in your head. Yes, a six-pack is sustainable year-round because unlike your Hollywood star who got his through drug use or some kid who is eating 2 carrots a day to have a six-pack and be with the bras, then we're fine. Okay, you're going to be able to have that. A six-pack abs, by the way, that you keep year-round is normal. I know that in this modern world it's not accepted. Many people have a gut year-round and they cut for summer or for 1 week after January when they have a resolution. But a well-defined core is normal to have as a male. And as I said, it's the reason why also, if you have one, it makes you more appealing to women for the simple reason that most of the population don't have one. So you have a massive advantage. It's also the reason why so many people get surgically implanted abs, which look terrible and fake, but they still do it. And the good news is that for natural lifters such as yourself, you can have abs and fat. I know, shocking. This is muscle, okay? All of that, that's muscle, that's fat. On top of that and water, they go well together. Because guess what? If you have muscles and fat on top of that, it makes it look bigger. So it's a win-win situation. And you can eat what you want. You don't have to starve yourself. So that was the small rant on the side for the leveling up of the abs. You level them up, but not only that, you have like checkpoints. They don't go away. The idea, and I know that many of you are maybe like this, of only having abs in summer is ridiculous to me. You should have abs all the time. So, that was for the diet portion of the discussion. That also will lead you, if you follow my advice in terms of diet, to actually looking good. Because, again, many people develop their abs, as I say, then they get a six-pack and they don't like the way they look. Because what they wanted wasn't a six-pack. They wanted muscularity. When you look at a Hollywood movie star and you see this six-pack, what you want is not the six-pack. You want the status associated with the six-pack, which is something you can obtain if you get muscular. But the six-pack by itself looks like shit. And that's a saying that I particularly appreciate because it pisses off both sides of the spectrum. Abs on a skinny guy are like boobs on a fat chick. It doesn't count. take that lesson to heart. A six-pack looks great on a guy who has muscle around the six-pack, because if a six-pack ties your physique together and you have no physique, then it ties nothing together, so it's completely useless. That's the big idea around the core. A core is important for what surrounds it. The core of the atom is important because of the structure it constitutes. But without the structure around it, the core loses its purpose and it's now completely useless. So congratulations, you took something that was vital and you removed the substance of vitality from it, and now it does nothing. It's nothing. You have abs and you look like garbage. And that's the reason why. I want to keep going, I won't, but I'm sure that I could write something interesting about that, because there is some philosophical content to be found here with the idea of the core, of what it means in terms of function and aesthetic, and what this modern world has done to it. It turned it into a mercantile merchandise to be sold to young men without the actual meaning attached to it. Because if bodybuilders would train abs for the sole function of developing the core in terms of functionality, it's a bad idea. But trying to get abs without actually utilizing their function is also a bad idea. See, that's a good summary of what I wanted to say. Okay, let's move on. This also means, by the way, that since the abs are really a byproduct, as I just discussed, and they work in unison and tandem with the rest of the body, you cannot have a split scheduled around the six-pack. Please don't do that. I know it's very hype and it's very popular to have a six-pack shortcut and six-pack in 2 weeks. By the way, that's garbage and nonsense. A six-pack is like any muscle. You want to grow it, it takes time. If you develop a six-pack in 2 weeks, it means two things. One, you starve yourself, so you have a shitty six-pack. Or two, you had a six-pack to start with and you were just fat. So either way, you didn't develop a six-pack in 2 weeks. It was already there or it's not there. It's one or the other. Keep that in mind too. I mean, the six-pack is always there, even if you have fat on it. The muscles don't go away. As I said, fat guys, muscular or not, still have abdominal muscles. We all have them. It's a matter of having them reveal themselves or not. But we will not build a split around the abs because, as I said, it's a bad idea to obsess on them. It's better to work them in a peripheral manner, because at the end of the day, that's the most optimal way to utilize their function. What I mean by that is that if we are to take that advice to heart, we're not going to do only ab isolation or compounds, we're going to do both. So you're going to do both and you're going to utilize supersets, because if the function of the abdominal muscles is recruited in compounds, it does not mean that it's sufficient for the hypertrophic benefits. And on top of that, it makes it so that the core is utilized all of the time, has therefore high endurance at some point of your training if you develop it enough, and can be supersetted. And this is why I personally superset all of my ab exercises. One, because it's doable, as I said. Two, because it gives me an opportunity to actually do it. Too many people leave abs for the end of the training, and I'm sure that you've done that as well, where you tell yourself, oh, I will just do abs at the end, or worse, I will do abs at home. How many of you go home and actually do that? 0%. You go home, you fire up the Xbox and Hot Pockets and you chill. Why? You just got done training. The last thing you want is to train again. And you know that what I'm saying is correct. You skip abs all the time. It's the reason why you have a shitty six-pack. So do it supersetted in between other exercises, and you will actually work them. Revelation of the highest percentage of purity. That is the way I grew my abs. I did at the start go crazy with isolation, and I was obsessed, as I said. Thankfully for me, I also worked the other muscles around it, so I got big and the six-pack was put to good use. But again, if I compare the six-pack I developed back then with those methods and what I have now, yeah, it's much bigger and aesthetic now. And so I want you guys to also apply these methods. If you do your compounds with proper bracing, that's already a lot of hard work, because it's going to strengthen the core. And that's hypertrophy, by the way. It works, it does function. And that is going to be a big part of the work to level up your abs. And by the way, quick interjection in this video for people who ask me, how do you brace? Like this. That's a brace. That's it. You don't need to do a somersault. I know some guys who have like that ritual to brace. A brace is a natural thing to do, okay? The Valsuve maneuver, whatever you want to call it, is very easy. It's not something that takes energy. You just take a breath, not a big breath or a big belly breath, just take a breath, and you clinch, you brace down, okay? You just squeeze your abs together. That creates a strong wrap around the spine, and you're safe, you're good to go. Personally, for me, I don't even think about it. I don't brace willingly, I just do it because it's the way we're supposed to do it. The human body is made that way, as I explained with the God and evolution thing. We have abs to use it. How do you use your abs? Well, you activate them when you lift, you activate them in your life. When you walk around, you use your abs. You might not realize it, but you use your abs. How? To stabilize your spine, or else you'd be like, you know those spaghetti things they put like near gas stations to attract you in? Whatever, I don't know if you have the same gas stations I have here. That's your abs doing that. It keeps you upright, just like the glutes, just like the lower back. All of that allows you to actually walk like a bipedal mammal. I'm going too far into this discussion, it's not needed. Still interesting, I believe, but that's the abs. That's the reason why the bracing is important and not complicated. It's a natural thing, you know how to do it, so just do it. And then we're going to stretch. So you brace and you stretch. Do you do it at the same time? No. But keep in mind that when you brace and you do a deadlift, the abs are getting stretched to an extent. Not as much as we would want them to, so we complement that as well. And as I said, since you're going to do your bracing for the strength work, it's not a good idea to superset that with abs, I believe, because it's going to take away from your ability. That's a discussion to be had as well. How do you schedule your training for abs, to level up your abs? Well, when you get started, first off, don't go insane, don't be obsessed. Do a tiny bit of it. Maybe even just start with bracing for 3 months and then add some stretching exercises. Don't rush. As I said, you don't rush towards a six-pack because the idea that you need to rush to develop it shows that in the back of your head, you think of it as something that is non-permanent. Like it's just going to be there for a few fleeting seconds and then it's gone. No, that's the way you approach it. It's the wrong way to go about it. Take your time. You won't have a six-pack in 4 months, okay? Breathe, it's okay. You won't look like Brad Pitt immediately, but you will look much better than him down the line if you slowly hypertrophy. Hypertrophy is a very slow game. So, I preach strong bracing for the strength work that opens the workout, and then in the other set, when you lift easier loads with low intensity, and you don't recruit too much of the core, now we can superset, and you can superset whatever you want. Crunches, leg raises, any type of Russian twist. I don't really think there are many exercises for the core that are bad. I think that crunches, when you're just on your back and you do this, are not the best because, again, they function towards the bracing and they focus on the bracing and not the stretch. But any core exercise that focuses on that stretch is a good thing. My God tier exercise is you take a decline bench, stick your legs at the top and you do crunches like this and you focus on the stretch. You can load that with a dumbbell in your hand and you can do that with like a medicine ball. All of that works and the stretch is unmatched. It's amazing. I personally don't have that in my home gym or else I would do it, but it's great. Leg raises work. All of that to say what? I'm not going to list you the exercises. I have a video in the description if you want that you can check for a tutorial, but all of that to me is a misdirection. Too many YouTubers do that. They make you videos about like the best variation for abs. The best variation for abs is the one that you will do regularly and that stretches the abs. That's it. It's it. There's not a best one. They all do the same thing. They stretch the abdominal muscle. So pick one or two and just do them. Don't skip them, superset them, and just get down to it and do them. And that also leads to engaging the core. How many times you work your core in a week? Well, I preach every day. You can start with only 3 days a week, but then do it every day, man. It's doable. It really is. Why? Because the muscles of the core are designed to be used all the time. It's like the calves. It's the reason why many people link them when they talk about muscles that just won't grow. It's because these are stubborn muscles. You use them all the time. When you sneeze, when you stand, when you laugh, when you take a shit, you use your abs. And therefore, if you want them to grow, you're going to have to give them more than that. And a good way to train that type of muscle, I have found, is to train them every day with low intensity, medium to high volume, and you will find that the recovery just matches. Look at my programs. In all of my programs, I have you work abs every day. Why? It's essential. You want a six-pack? You have to. Your braces and your compounds will not cut it. Your isolations will not cut it. You need to do both every single day. And your body is going to adapt and you will reach the level of six-pack musculature that you've always desired because you utilize the normal function that they develop. So of course they will grow. And after that, we're good. You don't need to focus on the function. You see, I just explained it to you. We're getting the aesthetic benefits of working the abs through function without even looking at it twice. We don't need to focus on it intently because it's just not our ball game. Our ball game is hypertrophy. And with what I just described to you, we have achieved it. And so this video can take its leave. We are finished. With that information, you have everything you know about leveling up your abs. If you are seeking for more details about body parts, I will be making more of these episodes. And in the description is the one about legs. Thank you for watching. Get that six-pack. Have a good day.